Based on everything that you know about RFK Jr. and how he eats and how he bathes, I think you'd imagine that a sext from him would be a pretty wild and weird ride, but I guarantee no matter how weird you think it is, it's even weirder in practice.
For most Americans, Cheryl Hines was the charming comedic actress from Curb Your Enthusiasm, a woman who built her career on timing, wit, and a kind of effortless cool that made her instantly likable. And when she married Robert F. Kennedy Jr. back in 2014 at a beachside wedding officiated by Larry David himself, it looked like a fairy tale. A Hollywood star marrying into America's most mythologized political dynasty. A glamorous, unlikely love story that somehow made perfect sense. But nobody prepares you for the other side of being a Kennedy spouse. The headlines, the rumors, the political knives that never stop sharpening. And in 2024, Cheryl Hines found herself pulled into a scandal she didn't choose, didn't create, and didn't want. Allegations that her husband had carried on a year-long digital affair with journalist Olivia Nuzzi. Now, with Kennedy serving as Secretary of Health and Human Services under President Donald Trump, and the story refusing to die, Cheryl Hines is finally breaking her silence. Not with rage, not with tears, but with a calm, razor-sharp clarity that makes the whole saga even more intriguing. And according to her, this entire scandal wasn't romance. It wasn't betrayal. It was politics, pure, exhausting, weaponized politics. But to understand the weight of her response, you need the full picture. The messy timeline, the blurred lines, the digital evidence, the jealous ex, the media storm, and a presidential campaign spinning out of control. Because this wasn't just a tabloid moment. This was a political earthquake. It began quietly, almost invisibly, in late 2023. Olivia Nuzzi, one of Washington's rising journalism stars, the fearless reporter known for high-profile profiles and access to the most powerful figures in D.C., had her sights set on RFK Jr., who was running one of the most unpredictable, volatile campaigns in modern history. She published a major piece on him in November 2023, describing his candidacy as something that could turn the presidential race upside down. The article dropped, shook political media for a minute, and then the world moved on. Except they didn't move on. Behind the scenes, according to Nuzzi herself, some communication turned personal. No physical relationship, she insisted, but private messages, intimate exchanges, photos? Yes, and that's how it began. Not with a scandalous hotel rendezvous, but with a journalist and a presidential candidate blurring a line that should have never blurred. By December 2023, whispers were already circling Washington. By spring 2024, the rumors had teeth. By summer 2024, it reached a boiling point. And in August 2024, the same month Kennedy abruptly ended his presidential run, the affair allegations exploded into public view. Suddenly, every detail became fuel. Texts, late-night messages, digital intimacy, and speculation about emotional entanglement. Kennedy denied it. His spokesperson insisted he'd met me only once for an interview. Nuzzi confirmed a personal relationship, but maintained it was never physical. But the real chaos came from someone completely outside the political universe, her ex-fiancé, journalist Ryan Leza. In court documents later reviewed by CNN, Leza painted a disturbing picture, claiming RFK Jr. wanted to possess, control, and impregnate Nuzzi. Words with the emotional weight of a hammer, designed to shock, designed to stain. Nuzzi fired back, accusing Leza of blackmailing her to get her back and leaking the affair when she refused. He denied it. She denied anything physical. He insisted it lasted a year. Suddenly, the scandal wasn't about two people. It was about three. A love triangle none of them could escape. And in the center, whether she liked it or not, was Cheryl Hines, a woman who watched the headlines spiral, who saw strangers dissect her marriage, her loyalty, her dignity. A woman who stood beside her husband through a brutal, divisive campaign, only to be handed yet another humiliation, a digital affair, a media circus, and a journalist now writing a memoir that promises even more details. Anyone else might have exploded, or cried publicly, or filed for divorce, or disappeared from the spotlight. But Cheryl Hines didn't do any of that. Instead, she waited almost a full year, and then delivered a response that felt more surgical than emotional. On a new episode of the Katie Miller podcast, hosted by the wife of Trump's deputy chief of staff, Hines finally spoke, not in sound bites, not in dramatics, but in the calm, measured tone of a woman who has lived long enough to know chaos is temporary and character is permanent. When asked directly about the affair allegations, she didn't flinch. "I think you always have to consider the source," she said. "That's where I start." It was subtle, but pointed. A reminder that politics creates opportunists, exaggerations and vendettas disguised as journalism. Then she added the line that really mattered. "And then it ends with a conversation with Bobby." In one sentence, she did three things at once. She dismissed the rumor mill. She affirmed that she and her husband actually talked through it privately, and she made it clear they weren't undone by it. Then Miller pressed harder, asking specifically about the digital relationship and the intimate photos reportedly exchanged between Kennedy and Nudzi. Cheryl didn't blink. "Bobby had been running for president," she said, "and it was an exhausting year and a half of headlines and rumors and articles and chaos. And at that time I thought, okay, this is more chaos and more rumors." Translation, this wasn't romance. This wasn't betrayal. This was campaign noise, the kind every political spouse eventually learns to ignore. She added simply, "It was a lot." That's the thing. Sometimes the most revealing statements are the softest ones. You could hear resilience in her voice, but you could also hear exhaustion, the kind that comes from trying to keep a life together while the entire country dissects it like a crime scene. But the drama doesn't stop there, because Olivia Nuzzi isn't fading away. She's capitalizing on the scandal. She has a memoir coming out, a tell-all that promised to detail everything about her relationship with Kennedy. She isn't hitting. She isn't retreating. She's turning the mess into a book deal. When asked about that upcoming memoir, Cheryl delivered another cold, steady line. "I don't know this person. Don't know their intentions. I could guess, but I won't. But you can if you want." And that comment, that little bit of razor-thin shade, may be the most honest moment in this entire saga. Because the truth is, Cheryl Hines doesn't need to attack anyone. She doesn't need to defend herself. She doesn't need to go to war in the press. She's already won. She kept her marriage. She kept her dignity. She kept her sense of humor. And most importantly, she refused to let a digital scandal, born out of campaign chaos, emotional manipulation, and power imbalances, define her relationship with the man she married. The scandal itself became a political grenade that blew up in every direction. Olivia Nuzzi lost her job at New York Magazine. She was placed on leave. A third-party review found no bias. She and the magazine parted ways. She was later hired by Vanity Fair. She started writing her memoir. Her ex-fiancée, Lisa, denied her accusations, and the public still doesn't know who to believe. Meanwhile, Kennedy returned to government life, no longer a presidential candidate, now serving in the Trump administration. And Cheryl? She chose peace over spectacle. In a political era fueled by scandal, she made a choice that's increasingly rare. She refused to let anyone else narrate her marriage. She refused to let strangers with agendas define what trust looks like in her home. And she refused to give this story more oxygen than it deserved. She didn't declare war. She didn't drag anyone. She didn't crumble. She simply put the rumor back where it belonged, outside her house, outside her marriage, outside her life. Not everything needs a dramatic response. Sometimes the most powerful move is to stay calm while everyone else is screaming. And that is exactly what Cheryl Hines did.